Welcome to Pandora's Box Chat Show. It is Tuesday night at 8 and tonight we're talking about sexual abuse and rape. Felicity Guest, another heavy topic for us.
Yes, another heavy topic, but I think critical that we talk about these things and keep talking about them.
Absolutely. Opening the dialogue, I think, is for most women probably the most scary thing that could happen. And as you have mentioned to me, the statistics around women that don't report cases are quite high.
Yes, alarmingly high, and so it's not a true reflection of what is actually happening in society. So we have to just work on the statistics that we have, and those are pretty scary. That in the stats for 2016-2017, there was an increase of 117% in reported rape cases.
Reported?
Yes, which is sexual offences. So, you know, that's how much of and that's pretty scary. Even their stats with rape, sexual offences recorded by police, an increase. Some of them are 109%. Crime statistics recorded 109.1 rapes each day.
Wow.
That's what's recorded. So you can imagine how many are not, because we know the majority are not recorded, which is alarming. 109.
And this is across the board again, like in our previous episode. We are not talking race specific or class specific or anything
Age.
like that. We're talking across the board.
Across the board.
And when you mention age, we're talking about small kids and adult women right across the range.
Well, I mean, if you look at what we've seen in the news lately and just going back on some of the archives, we spoke earlier about that infant that was so badly violated through rape that she will never have children again. That's physically. Young enough, hopefully, for some of the emotional scars heal, but from the age of 2, never have children.
It's very difficult for me to talk about, especially when it comes to kids. I mean, we're both parents, mothers, and just the thought of what that child goes through, let alone the mom of that child. And very often in these cases, it's not strangers, it's family members or people close to them.
Absolutely. It's either a family member or somebody that is known to them. And that's pretty scary, because who do we trust our children to? And there's been a recent spike in the increase in sexual assault against young boys. So our boys aren't safe. We used to think it was just our girls we had to worry about. Now our boys are not safe. Who do we trust our children with?
And so historically, we've seen, when we look at the psychological impact of abuse on children, they often become abusers themselves.
Yes, if there's no intervention. But how can intervention take place if people are not reporting them?
Not talking about it.
Because of the amount of shame. And will people believe you? Will there be retaliation?
You know what, I can say from a personal experience that if you don't have a good relationship with your mother, which is your primary go-to person if you feel you need to confide in somebody, you will never talk about anything that happened to you in terms of sexual harassment, sexual molestation, or rape, or any of those things.
Well, I'm going to say that I hear it very frequently, that women who've had those relationships with their mothers, when they've gone and spoken to their mothers have not been sympathetic to what they've been through. There's a disbelief. You can imagine if it's the mother's relative, her husband, depending on their relationship. You might have a good relationship with your mother. And if your mother doesn't believe you, how then do you find the courage to go on and report it to
a stranger?
Else?
Are there enough follow-through in our court system when cases like this come through?
Well, those stats are also pretty scary, because the conviction rate, I don't have the exact stats with me, but the conviction rate is as low as about 14%, maybe even less, or their roundabouts. So you can imagine all the trauma that a victim has to go through just to bring the perpetrator to court with such a low conviction rate. Recently, the Comrades race was run, and there was an athlete who is quite a successful athlete, when I read her story, that her motivation is the fact that she was raped.
Yeah. And under very crazy circumstances.
That 2 days after she was raped, she went and ran a race. And when she ran the race, every step that she took or ran was her anger against her being violated.
And apparently he was about to kill her. He was a serial killer.
Yes, and a split second he had some kind of pity on her and let her go. But that was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. It's still, she's using it in a positive way. And we actually see that with many survivors who are brave enough to talk about it, that they then use that to for
Propel
the own,
themselves, yeah.
for the own healing process, but also to go out and encourage other victims that you too can overcome this, and that it doesn't necessarily have to define your life, that you can define it and go on to live a very productive, happy life thereafter. And I think that there's this in-between thing of, from the time that it happened and how you go about that, the kind of support that you get, and where you're going to end up with it. I mean, some people choose never to talk about it, and that's also okay. They get silent motivation by just hearing others talk out about it. So I
Again, making you feel that you are not alone in
yes,
this.
again, you're not alone, and I hear you, because that's what they say. They go, I hear you, I see you, I know what it's like, and you too can overcome this.
It's one of those topics where we can unravel and unpack, and we can probably speak for days, Felicity. I've had certain experiences, you've had experiences, and we all know another woman who have had some traumatic experience. I think the important thing is that we know that we are not alone, and when we hear somebody else's story, that we can empathize, and that we can perhaps find some solace in the fact that they've been through it, like the athlete we spoke of. They've been through it, they've made it, and so can we. After the break, we're going to continue and then invite Gigi White from the Get Up Women Foundation to speak to us about what she has done and how she helps women through the very traumatic experiences they encounter. Stay with us. Welcome back to Pandora's Box Chat Show. We are now joined by Gigi White, who is the founder of Get Up Women in Johannesburg, a non-profit organization that helps women get back on their feet again after traumatic experiences. Gigi, thank you so much for joining us again, and welcome to the show.
Hi ladies, thank you for having me back on the show.
Thank you for joining us. I'd like to go straight in and ask you to share with us a Pandora's story, who you have assisted through a sexual assault or rape experience, and how she's got back up on her feet again.
Yes, Felicity, we've seen a couple of crazy cases over the last 3 years. It's a bit difficult to single one out, but the one thing that they all share is we realized that taking women that have survived something like that and creating a community around her seems to make the biggest difference. Allowing her a safe space to get up and speak, share stories with other survivors. We also found that self-defense courses work quite well, teaching the ladies how to defend themselves and allowing them to replay what had happened to them and showing them how to physically defend themselves. That's gone a long way in giving a woman her power back. So yeah, like I said, it's very difficult to pin out just one.
How do women approach you when they find themselves in a difficult situation and feel that they need to get out?
Get Up Women is currently very active on Facebook, and it seems to be the easiest platform for ladies to get hold of us. So we find that probably 80% of the women that come to us asking for assistance have found us through Facebook.
Do you often find women come to you when it's almost too late, or when they've been through it for years, or are there cases where women come to you at the inception of the abuse?
Unfortunately, we find that most women only contact us when they're deep in. I think the inception is the honeymoon period, when most women don't realize that they're in an abusive relationship. So yeah, tragically, by the time it does get brought to our attention, it's many, many years in. A lot of damage has already been done.
In all the years of research that I've done, Get Up Women came across my path, and I was in complete awe of all the work that you are doing, Gigi. And I just wonder, how do you cope? How do you cope with the increasing demand? How do you cope with the costing? I know we've had various conversations around the fact that you can't afford to help everybody that you that you would like to reach out to and help. How are you coping on a daily basis with all the demands?
Look, I think all of us who make the decision to start an NPO are very much aware of what we're getting into. And yeah, coping, I don't know, we cope. Every day you just got to kind of push harder and try harder. So yeah, it's difficult, and the funding at the moment is also pretty non-existent. So we have to get creative. We get very creative on a daily basis. And yeah, you just kind of push on and hope for a better day.
How can women out there that would like to get involved, perhaps in form of donations, financially or materially, perhaps with transport, how can they get involved if they would like to give you a hand?
Get Up Women runs on 6 pillars, which kind of makes it a bit easier for average people to get involved. There's a lot of different aspects to it. So what we found over the years is there's space for everyone to come and assist, even if it's not financial. So I think the best bet would be to get hold of me and find out what we're currently busy with and see where you can slot in.
Gigi, like myself, NPO sector is incredibly underfunded, and we all find ourselves in the space and vacuum that is created because government can't fulfill all of these services, and because we all have a passion for it, we step in and we provide these services, yet we don't have the funding for it, and yet we still are just driven by our hearts to do something about it and just hope somewhere, somehow the funding comes in. So I really hope that there is a response to your needs through being on our platform, because you really do offer a critical form of support for women. Thank you.
Absolutely, I'll echo that. And I think just in closing, if we can perhaps put an appeal out to all our viewers, if you are in any position to assist any of these organizations that we have mentioned on our show so far, please reach out and please help where you can. Gigi, thank you once again for joining us this evening. Thank you for your input. Thank you for sharing with us. We really do appreciate it, and we wish you well with everything that you're doing up there in Joburg. Really great work that you're doing, and we wish you all the best. Thank you so much.
And thank you once again for having me on the show, and thank you for the show.
Thank you, Gigi.
Felicity, I think we're going to leave it there for this evening. Viewers, thank you so much for joining us this evening. And remember to comment if you've not done so. At 9 o'clock, we will announce the winner of the competition for this week.
And remember to hashtag Pandora Talks.
Good night. See you next week.